Mary had a little lamb.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Memphis bracing and officials begging for peace as video is set to be released showing how 29-year-old Tyre Nichols ended up like this and later dying while in police custody.
Our family is grief-stricken.
Overnight, a prayer vigil at one of Nichols' favorite spots, a Memphis skate park. His mother sending this message to the city.
I didn't see it, but from what I hear, it's going to be horrific. But I want each and every one of you to protest in peace.
5 fired Memphis police officers have now been charged with several crimes, including second-degree murder, aggravated assault, and kidnapping.
The actions of all of them resulted in the death of Tyre Nichols, and they are all responsible.
The footage, which has been viewed by Nichols' family and their attorneys, but not yet made public, shows a January 7th traffic stop and a confrontation with those officers. Then, an alleged beating the family describes as similar to what happened to Rodney King. According to the family's attorneys, an independent autopsy found Tyre suffered from extreme bleeding caused by a severe beating. But it's still unclear exactly what happened. Police say they pulled Nichols over for reckless driving around 8:30 p.m. that night. A confrontation followed. Pepper spray was used, and Nichols fled on foot.
There was another altercation at a nearby location at which the serious injuries were experienced by Mr. Nichols. After some period of time of waiting around afterwards, he was taken away by an ambulance.
Nichols would die 3 days later, the incident now being investigated by local, state, and federal authorities. 2 members of the Memphis Fire Department who were part of Nichols' initial patient care were also fired while an internal investigation continues.
He absolutely will plead not guilty.
Defense attorney Blake Ballin is representing former officer Desmond Mills Jr., who posted bail overnight.
You haven't seen the video, but I'm sure you've seen that photo of Tyre Nichols in the hospital.
I have.
When you saw that, what did you think?
It looks like somebody crossed a line, and I believe the proof will show that Mr. Mills is not one of the officers that crossed that line.
Oh, he wasn't one of the ones that crossed the line, but the other ones crossed the line, and that's why he's dead. So listen, this is the thing. I would much rather have you yell at me, call me, get upset with me, than I would see violence tonight after this videotape is released, and it will be released tonight. And they say, you know, I'm like, why on a Friday freaking night would you release a horrific, brutal video of a 29-year-old person being beaten to death by a Scorpion team, which is what this division of the police force in Memphis was known as, a Scorpion team. Okay, so they say that the reason that they're doing it on a Friday night is because they think that businesses will be, for the most part, closed, that people will be home from work, that the city will be less full if they do it after business hours on a Friday night. This is the rationale. And, of course, the Memphis police chief has been exceptional. She's been extremely transparent. She's been very honest. We're not even used to having a police chief stand up and say, I don't even know what the hell this traffic stop was about. We're not used to seeing police chiefs say, these officers need to be fired. What they did was not good policing. It was not standard policing. They seemed amped up. They seemed like they went in with an axe to grind. This did not turn out well because it did not begin well. It wasn't real. It wasn't, a decent reason. Reckless driving can mean anything. It could mean a broken taillight. It could mean a distracted driver. It could mean, he had an expired tag. This was obviously a pretext stop, meaning that they stopped him so that they would, be able to search him or intimidate him or get him to talk to them about something else they were looking for. Honestly, you've never seen a police chief do that. I've never seen a police chief do that. And yet that's what's going on with this police chief. And she has shown herself to be quite an amazing police chief. Her name's C.J. Davis. And, when we look at the numbers of people killed by law enforcement, it's astronomical. It's astronomical. And then you can now break down the numbers this year from the numbers that we saw last year. And we can find out that in 2022, there were 1,176 people, about 100 people each month killed with by police, killed by police violence. And now you can separate out the reasons for the killing, and you can see that 132 of the killings were cases in which no offense was ever even alleged. 104 of the cases were mental health related or welfare check related. 98 of the cases involved traffic violations. 207 involved other allegations of non-violent offenses. 93 cases involved claims of domestic disturbance, and 128 where the person was allegedly seen with a weapon. Out of all the cases, the 1,176 cases of of people showing up dead because police responded, only 370 of those involved a potentially more serious situation that included alleged violent crime. So of the 1,000, only 370 involved allegations of violence, okay? These other ones are all routine police encounters that escalated into somebody ending up dead. And we know some of the names of the people that ended up dead. We know, about Jacob Blake. He wasn't dead. He's just, completely paralyzed in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Remember him? Jayland Walker, Robert Adams, Laquan McDonald, who was, fleeing. He was walking away from police. Everybody remembers that video, but we didn't get that video until at least a year after the episode, a year after his murder. George Floyd, that took months and months to get video from that. This was very quick by standards in America of justice, of applying, just behavior after a police killing that had absolutely nothing to do with anything. So we're finding out that the police chief can't substantiate anything that the police officers said. She cannot substantiate that there was even a valid reason to pull this guy over. She said she looked at the videos ahead of the altercation, and there were two at two separate spots. Apparently, when they first pulled him over, he wanted to know what he did because he hadn't done anything, and this is what the police chief is saying is true. He hadn't done anything. And he was scared, and he was 3 blocks away from his parents' house, 3 blocks away. And they tased him because he was scared to get out of the car. And he had obviously reason to be scared to get out of the car because he ended up dead in the end. And then they pulled him over again, and he was yards away from his parents' home. And he tried to get away on foot, and they beat him to death. They literally beat him to death. What's on that videotape that is so horrific seems to be what his dad described as them beating him and propping him up and beating him some more and propping him up again and beating him some more and propping him up repeatedly and then beating him with an antenna. Just beating him while he was handcuffed. And now we have testimony from, well, it's not testimony, but we have a videotape, police chief on videotape talking to various, people in the media, but Don Lemon was first out this morning with it. And she says, I didn't see reckless driving. I don't even know what this stop was about. And that is why people are afraid of the reaction to this video when this video is released. The people of Memphis and other cities, they have nothing on you unless you do violence tonight.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Do we know what sparked the confrontation at the initial stop?
I think that's the piece that is just unknown.
No one knows.
No one knows. And it's obvious when you see this video that it begins at a high level. Typically, when we have traffic stops, something sparks, or at least you're able to see what sparks this amount of aggression and physical, activity with the driver. We cannot tell based on video what that was about.
Well, when did the beating start? Was it initially, or was it when he tried to run away?
There is physical interaction between Mr. Nichols and the driver at the very beginning as the officers are trying to get him out the car. But it's still unknown what the original reason was for the stop in the first place.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Now, the police lied to the parents, who also sat down and gave an interview this morning and told the parents that he was arrested for DUI and that they had to tase him and that they had to, rough him up or some such crap. And the mother was like, you're describing somebody I don't even know. My kid does not drink like that. I mean, I don't even know what you're talking about. But when the police chief was pressed on what actually sparked the claim that they had to pull him over for reckless driving, which, by the way, is a catch-all phrase. Reckless driving can mean anything at all in ticketing, right? It can mean, like I said, it can mean a broken taillight. It can mean an expired registration. It can mean you changed lanes without signaling. It could mean that you are driving erratically. It can mean that you are actually, driving recklessly, meaning you're crossing lanes and, just becoming a new, or it can mean nothing. It could mean that, maybe you were distracted for a half a second changing the radio station. Well, she says she looked at the videotape ahead of the stop, and she didn't see any reckless driving, okay?
Can we talk about the nature of the stop? Yes. What was the nature? Why was he stopped?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you about the stop itself. What was said was that there was a witnessing of what was considered reckless driving. Mm-hmm. We've looked at cameras, we've looked at body-worn cameras, and even if something occurred prior to this stop, we've been unable to substantiate that at this time.
So you haven't been able to substantiate the reckless driving at all?
No, we have not been able to substantiate the reckless driving.
And that was why he was supposedly stopped?
We've taken a pretty extensive look to determine what that probable cause was, and we have not been able to substantiate that. It doesn't mean that something didn't happen, but there's no proof.
There's no proof that the cameras didn't pick up.
The cameras didn't pick up.
It has been said that it is reminiscent, perhaps worse than the Rodney King video. Is that your assessment?
That's my assessment. I was in law enforcement during the Rodney King incident, and it's very much aligned with that same type of behavior.
That it's worse?
Sort of groupthink. I would say it's about the same, if not worse.
So, it's going to be 5 people literally whipping, beating, punching a handcuffed person over and over and over and over again. I heard one of the lawyers for the prosecution of the officers in the Rodney King incident, one of the lawyers was saying, this is going to be so hard to watch. This is going to be horrific. This is going to be so jarring, only because he wanted us to remember that the Rodney King video, as brutal as it was, only lasted a little over a minute. That beating went on for a little over a minute. I think he said a minute and 20 seconds or a minute and 19 seconds, something like that. This goes on for, he said, 3 minutes, and 3 minutes is going to seem like an eternity because of the amount of blows and the amount of beating and kicking and that we're going to see. And again, I want everyone who cares about this, who cares about justice, who cares about making the change that we need to make so this doesn't happen anymore, okay, to not react in a violent way when this videotape is released, because people are going to be it's going to be difficult to watch. It's going to be a horror show. There's no question. There's no question. And so this is why I think we all need to, vent about all the things that are wrong, talk about solutions that we know actually work, praise this police chief for telling the truth, for having these men fired immediately. They weren't suspended pending an investigation. We didn't have to wait a year to get the videotape. We're going to get the videotape in, listen, he died on, I think, January 7th. So in 3 weeks, we'll get the videotape. Obviously, it took a little time to write up the indictments, present them to a grand jury, get the grand jury to issue the indictments, take these police officers into custody, etc. And they wanted that done before they released this video, because apparently we're all going to, just shriek in horror when we see it. And now we know that there was no legitimate reason to pull him over in the first place. The chief of the police in Memphis, C.J. Davis, said that the reason why she got up at 4 o'clock in the morning when she got this phone call from the cops that all this had happened and that this guy was in the hospital, she said the summary that she received of what they saw, the action they took, and the result of it didn't make any sense to her.
These were pretty extraordinary measures, I must say, in all the times that I've been covering these types of incidents. To fire the officers and to charge them so strictly, does that speak to what we're going to see on that videotape when it is released after 7 p.m. Eastern?
Absolutely. I think that, it also speaks to the fact that, over the last several years, we have all talked about police legitimacy, and police reform. And I think it's really important that in instances like this, when they are serious, when they do rise to that level where a person's constitutional rights have been violated, their civil rights have been violated, that we act, and we act swiftly.
When did you first learn about this incident, Chief?
It was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning. That the previous day, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock, this incident occurred. About 4 o'clock in the morning, I learned of the incident, and it was just a strange summary of what occurred on a traffic stop. And I decided to go in the office and meet with the individuals that had information that I could take a look at it, even though at that time Tyre was in the hospital. But still, because he had injuries that I just didn't understand. It was incomprehensible to me. We came in the office and decided to take a look that Sunday morning, and it was alarming.
It was alarming. She said she got out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning when they called her, and they gave the summary to her of what had occurred at 8:30 the night before. It didn't make any sense to her. None of it did. And so she went into the office. What she said she saw in that videotape are amped up cops. They went in there to this traffic stop, everybody. Another traffic stop. Traffic stops have little to do, if nothing, with public safety, okay? This has all got to stop, and we can stop it.
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
That was my baby. He was a mama's boy. That boy loved me to death. He has my name tattooed on his arm. People don't know what those 5 police officers did to our family. And they really don't know what they did to their own families. They have put their own families in harm's way. They have brought shame to their own families. They brought shame to the Black community. I just feel sorry for them. I really do. I really feel sorry for them.
Why do you say that?
Because they didn't have to do this. And like I said, they brought a lot of shame to their own family. Once you see this video, and I know I didn't see it, but from what I hear, it's horrific. And the humanity of it all, where was the humanity? They beat my son like a piñata.
They seem, I have to say, from watching, there was a very long interview with them this morning, early, like 6 o'clock in the morning, around half an hour long. They seem like a really loving, beautiful family. And I don't know if you understand that Tyre Nichols has a son. He has a son. And his mom and dad, who are being interviewed here, said that he moved to Memphis to give a better life to his son, and Memphis took his life from him. Yards from his parents' home. It takes your breath away, and now you're going to find out that they didn't even have a reason to pull him over. They just made it up out of whole cloth. They were amped up. They wanted something to do, or they were looking to, entrap him into giving information about something else they were investigating, or they were looking to scare him into saying something about something perhaps he saw or didn't want to. I have no idea what went on there, and neither do his parents. Nobody understands. The police chief doesn't understand. She didn't see anything in the traffic stop that made sense to her. She didn't hear anything in the summary that she got at 4 o'clock in the morning that made any sense to her. She said that what she saw were cops amped up. They were like spoiling for this. They wanted a fight. They really wanted to. And now we're supposed to be, telling ourselves, well, all the police are really good. It's just 5 bad apples. We've told ourselves, it's one bad apple here and one bad. No, this is 5 bad apples. We've experienced 5 bad apples. Has nothing to do with the police culture. It has nothing to do with the fact that police aren't ever afraid that their police chiefs are going to fire them or speak out against them because they got this powerful freaking union, and the union bosses will come and save them from termination, or save their pensions, or save them from having to go on trial. These days are pretty much coming to an end, where the union can interfere in what a police chief knows is the right thing to do about dirty cops, bad cops, amped up cops, cops that are spoiling for a fight, cops that think that they can shake down innocent people in a community to get information on something unrelated to their lives, right? I mean, this is really coming to an end, and I just want everybody to understand that from the time we saw Rodney King, which was 1991. Oh my God. And Boys in the Hood, you remember Boys in the Hood? Remember that Singleton movie? Do you remember the scene where Cuba Gooding Jr. is being held with a gun to his neck, to his throat, by a black police officer? They were trying to tell you something then about the culture of policing, and that it has to do with the guys who see themselves as blue, not white, not black, not anything, just blue, and that everyone else is a perpetrator. Everyone else is fair game. Once you're wearing the blue, you're not black anymore. Once you wear, the scene from Boys in the Hood that is so, it is so germane to what we're talking about here, is a scene where Cuba Gooding Jr. is being pulled over by a police officer, and the police officer has a gun to his throat. And he's actually telling Cuba Gooding Jr., this black officer is telling this young black boy that the reason why he's doing it is because he loves to see the fear in his face. He needs to see the fear. He gets off on it. This is why he became a cop. He really enjoys doing this and seeing that kind of desperation and fear in somebody's face. And that it has nothing to do with, the officer being black. It has to do with the officer being blue. Being blue. And the only way that Cuba Gooding Jr. isn't killed in that scene is because he doesn't say anything. But just one tear goes down the side of his face, and the cop actually has this moment where he realizes, oh, this kid is human, and he lets him go. But that's what this is about. This is about a culture of impunity. This is about a culture that says you can do whatever the hell you want, and there's no consequences for it. You will never be held accountable. And in the last few years, we've seen accountability. We've seen people go on trial and be adjudicated guilty for doing this, for this kind of intimidation, for this kind of brutality, for this kind of violence against innocent people over and over and over again. Daniel in South Carolina.
Hey, so I wanted to correct you on reckless driving, but let me preface this with saying I pretty much agree with everything you're saying. Police brutality is an issue, and that's why I became a cop. Reckless driving is incredibly easy to prosecute, and that's why it is used, and it is frequently used in place of DUI because DUI is a lot more procedure and paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Reckless driving does require somewhat of a disregard for public safety. So now, I'm witnessing someone right now go over a white line. I'm in the car right now. I can pull you over for that. All right?
Yeah.
That's failure to maintain lane.
Right.
I can pull you over even easier for failure to maintain center. So if I see you stay between what we call the yellow and the white, we call it the mustard and mayonnaise. If I see you not cross the line, but if I see you kind of bobbing from line to line, that is against the law. That is failure to maintain center. It is ridiculously easy for an officer to pull you over for a traffic violation.
Understood.
Reckless is not a light out. That's faulty equipment. And it's not tagged. That's its own charge. But it is still incredibly easy to do. Now, I don't know what this kid did. This 29-year-old man, I don't know what he did. He may have fought the police. It does not matter. I can defend myself. Other than that, I have to subdue you. I cannot beat you. That is police brutality.
Right.
And that's why they're now they don't really teach combatives anymore. They teach jiu-jitsu because we're teaching hold. We're teaching arm bars.
Right.
We're not there's no more boxing, none of that stuff.
Right.
Because everything they did was against the law. And I'm a white cop.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, Officer Dan, you broke my law. You went over the time allotted, the period of time that is allotted for you to speak, and so I had to disconnect. But if you want to call back, please do. There's an open line right now. There's one, though. You'd have to do it really fast. 561-270-3844. In the meantime, we're just going to play you this.
The Memphis Police Department banged on our door approximately around between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, asking if I knew Tyre Nichols. And we said, yes. What's going on? He's been arrested. Arrested for what? DUI. DUI? My son don't drink like that. What do you mean DUI? Well, we had to pepper spray him and tase him, so he's being attended to by the paramedics, and we'll send him to the hospital, and then after that, he'll go to booking. What? They then asked me, was he on any type of drugs or anything of that nature, because they were saying that it was so difficult to put the handcuffs on him, and he had this amount of energy, superhuman energy. And what they were describing was not my son, so I was very confused. I asked if I can go to the hospital. They told me no.
No.
They left. My husband and I, we got in our car and we went to go see if we could find Ty, because he wasn't answering his phone or anything. When I asked them where my son was, they said nearby. Nearby? What is nearby? I got nothing from them. I think now that I'm actually putting things together, I believe they were trying to cover it up when they first came to my door.
It's the saddest of all stories. That one. Okay. Officer Dan has called us back. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. So that's the traffic spiel that is ridiculously easy. The police culture is the issue. What I'm finding out, I've been an officer for a little over a year now, so I'm pretty brand new to this. What I'm seeing is new cops are empathetic. Old cops are the type that are doing what we're seeing now.
Mm-hmm. These guys, though, when I look at them, they're 4 or 5 years on the force. These are not older cops. This is a. What do you know about like these strike teams? Like the Scorpion team.
So I don't know anything about a Scorpion team. I've heard of an incident, a similar issue to that in my department that they had to break up. They had 4 former Marines in the worst region in my department, and similar things happened. Now, I don't know if they ever beat anybody to death. That's, ridiculous isn't even the word for it. But they liked to fight, and they were known to like to fight, and they would go start fights. So it does happen, and they had to break them up. And that's on the department to know that. But these people, my issue with this is, would this have happened if these were 5 white cops? And I'm trying not to be so cynical. But this has happened before, and they get administrative leave. They get to go work at another department. Would this have happened if this was 5 white cops, or if it was 3 and 2, 5 and 1, whatever? I'm trying not to be so cynical.
I understand, and I appreciate what you're doing here. That's why I asked you to please call back. We all appreciate what you're doing here. It's very brave of you. It's very big of you. It's very adult of you, let's say. But this is what the parents are saying, too. This is what the parents are saying that they want. They want these teams of these strike forces that go into the worst possible, most violent areas. And there's usually 50 guys on a squad like that. And they say that the training that they get is to go in there and do pretext stops where they're stopping innocent people, entrapping them, scaring them into giving them information about something else that this team is pursuing. Yeah. And the parents are asking that this team be broken up too. That's what they would like to see in the end. And the problem I think that you're observing is one, I'm older than you, so I've seen it so often. The problem seems to be that these police officers are never held to account, right? The union comes in, they back them up. If they do, get in some sort of trouble, they will put them, over here for a minute, over there for a minute. Very rarely when they get fired, they seem to show up at another police force in another city. And they end up,
in cases I've seen, they can get promoted.
I've seen that too.
I have heard of road deputies getting into a shooting incident, whether it was their fault or not. Typically, if it's their fault, from what I've seen, they are punished, not to the extent that they should be. But I have seen road deputies, after a shooting incident, get moved up to investigations, get moved up to a specialized unit. I've seen them go to SRT SWAT teams.
Me too. And I've seen it too. And I've seen police officers who did something really heinous, really ugly, really sad, and all of a sudden they get a medal. They're Officer of the Year. Yeah. And that's to cover up the wrongdoing, right? I mean, they think they're so slick and so cool about it. Well, people out here who do need police officers, and we all want police officers. Nobody is saying we don't. And that's just a ridiculous, stupid thing that got slapped against people that are asking for better policing, right? That we want to defund the police. I mean, it's just not true.
And that's why I became a cop. I became a cop after George Floyd, because I am not going to stand by. And I've told every one of my officers, every one of my coworkers, I will defend you. If something happens, I will defend you to the full extent that I can. But if you are wrong, I am not defending you. I do not believe in this blue line. And I've told my superiors, I'm not a blue liner.
We appreciate you very, very much, Dan. Thank you so much for, becoming a police officer in the midst of all of this controversy, being a good guy who will speak up and speak out when people do, ridiculously violent, bad things on the, pretending that they're on the right side of the law because they're wearing blue, but they're really just, as criminal as the people that they seek to, So thank you.
When we're all thinking that, how can they possibly get away with this? honest to God, there's no way they should. I mean, that's just the gist of it.
Love you. Thank you. Appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I almost wish, Randy, that I had encouraged him to maybe use, and I don't know that he didn't, but maybe a different state or a different name, because that was brave and was mature and refreshing. And I'd like to make some kind of slick comment like, we don't have too many listeners in South Carolina. Yes, we do. Yes, we actually do. So, but that was very brave and very refreshing.
It was very big of him. It was very adult. He was adulting very well there. He is in service for real. And he wanted to make a difference in the way that, we are policed. And that is exactly what people like me have in mind when we talk about reforming the police and the policing that we are, all subject to. I mean, you're giving a young man like this, you're giving him a gun, you're giving him a badge, you're giving him the authority to arrest somebody, you're giving him the authority to search somebody, you're giving him a lot of responsibility for someone's safety, right, and for somebody's well-being, and he's taking it seriously and is willing to say, if I see someone not doing it in a serious manner, in an irresponsible manner, I don't have your back. That's rare as far as, our conversations have been over the last 20 years about this topic. And it's exactly what I'm talking about when I tell people that a difference is being made each time we peacefully protest, each time we point out that did not have to happen. That was irresponsible. There was no valid reason to be pulled over. When I show you that of 1,176 police killings last year, only 300 and change were legitimate, meaning they were violent or there was an allegation of violence in 370 of those shootings against, civilians. But when I tell you that, the rest of them, what's going on?
I had to replace the music. Yes, the old one fired off on accident. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we get flagged, just so you know. YouTube's been flagging our music now, our production music. Production music that we purchased.
That's on me, though. It reloaded back in the cart.
It's okay. It's so stupid what we have to spend our time doing. Because of YouTube's algorithm. It's ridiculous. But what I was saying to you is that we found out that only 370 of over 1,000 cases of police shootings were legit. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these cases were nonviolent cases or mental health cases or welfare check cases or involved traffic violations with no violence, no weapon, no nothing, no reckless driving.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
When I saw the police officer, they have this little, stick, this metal thing that they pull out.
Yeah, pull out like an antenna style.
Like an antenna,
right.
Exactly.
Retractable.
Yes, and I saw them pull that out and started beating my son with it. I saw officers hitting on him. I saw officers kicking him. One officer kicked him like he was kicking a football a couple of times. And, but the most telling thing about the video to me was the fact that it was maybe 10 officers on the scene.
Oh, my.
And nobody tried to stop it, or even after they beat him and they propped him up against a car, no one rendered aid to him whatsoever. They walked around smoking cigarettes like it was all calm and bragging about what happened. And
for an hour of video?
Yes.
And you saw him just sitting there?
He was sitting there, and then he slumped over. and an officer walked over to him and said, "Sit back up, mother MF," you know. And while he's handcuffed.
Right.
So they popped him back up, and he slumped over again, and they popped him back up again, but no one was rendering aid.
And that's his dad. Okay. So, like I said, these poor parents, I mean, they're still in shock, right? This is only something that happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And now the entire media, the entire universe is looking at them, asking them, what do you know? And how do you explain it? And what keeps you going? And how are you doing? And blah, blah. And they are having to answer for this bad behavior. They're having to testify about what they saw. And it is so unnecessary. And maybe, just maybe, see, Officer Dan, I have to say, I am so grateful that you called today because tomorrow is my birthday. And so you will be my official birthday present from the Randi Rhodes Air Force, from the Randi Rhodes audience. You will be my official birthday present because you made me feel not okay, but optimistic about the future.
Have you ever heard a police officer point towards police culture as a source of anything being a problem?
Not on our phone lines, but lately I hear this police chief in Memphis, CJ Davis, who is, she's shocking in her honesty. That's the thing about police culture is it's been dishonest. It's been excusatory. It's been, but. It's been, well, we risk our lives for you. It's a protect and serve situation, and somehow that got twisted up. That got completely, gnarled up. That became a different kind of service. It became self-serving instead of community serving. But see, when you hear police chiefs like C.J. Davis, and also I have to say the Shelby County District Attorney, now you expect to hear from a district attorney because he's a prosecutor, but you didn't hear prosecutors jump in very quickly before. Now, 20 days after the fact when, police have been charged and grand juries have been convened and indictments have been handed down and police are in jail, within 3 weeks, that is, in our culture, in our society, massive progress. Huge, huge progress. Then when you hear like the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the TBI, say things like this was not good policing, this was inappropriate, this was something that we won't tolerate, that's amazing progress. That is complete and total 180 from every other story we had to cover regarding police brutality. And David Roush is an officer in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and he actually said it out loud.
Simply put, this shouldn't have happened. I've been policing for more than 30 years. I've devoted my life to this profession, and I'm grieved. Frankly, I'm shocked. I'm sickened by what I saw. Mm-hmm. And what we've learned through our extensive and thorough investigation. I've seen the video, and as D.A. Mulroy stated, you will too. In a word, it's absolutely appalling. Let me be clear.
Yeah.
What happened here does not at all reflect proper policing. This was wrong. This was criminal.
Okay, so because he's been a police officer and now a TBI agent, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation agent, a federal agent, you gotta sort of say to yourself, you can just imagine that he's lying. Do you know what I mean? He's not really appalled. He's seen things that are worse. He's seen lynchings. We're talking Tennessee, 37 years on a police force. You got to know he's seen some really disgusting, disgraceful, hideous, heinous, ugly beatings and hangings and shootings. And he said nothing for a lot of his career. But Daddy's saying something now as a 37-year veteran of Tennessee policing is something. It's something. Now, if this were if this were a drama on the TV, you would see him go back to his office and say to somebody, I hated having to do that. You know what I mean? I've seen too many, police dramas, just too many, to accept that this guy, after 37 years of policing, this is the worst thing he's ever seen, and he's appalled. I think they got caught, and I think that there is a culture change. I think that you have police chiefs that aren't going to stand for it anymore. Like the days of, Los Angeles and Parker and Furman and all that stuff. Maybe we're leaving that as being normal, acceptable policing in that culture. And we're moving into Officer Dan's view that we need to be police because these old effers are effers. I don't know. But, Dan, you are my birthday present.
Just the hope of what you said being true is invaluable. It means so much. It means the world.
It's uplifting. It's, something. Rashid in Georgia.
Hey, Randy.
Hey.
I just wanted to call and wish you a happy birthday, one, and two, wanted to comment on this Memphis issue.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that you're the only person that I listen to on the radio that has ever said that if traffic stops are an issue, that we need to just take it off the plate of the police.
Yeah.
I haven't heard you say that in a while, but I do appreciate the fact that you recognize that if, they're so terrified or they're whatever the issue is. I don't really know what goes on in the mind of police when it comes to that, but you're the only person that I know that I've heard say that.
Yeah, because you know what? It's a simple matter. You could give it to, grandma and grandpa, retired people to run around, be traffic enforcement. And if they need backup, they have a radio they could call, right?
Yeah.
But you don't need an armed person to tell somebody that you crossed the white line. You know what I mean? And you got to are you sleepy? Do you need help? What's wrong with you? And then if somebody really is, suspicious, call for backup. But not every traffic stop and not every mental health check and not every welfare check and not every call that the police get with a cat up a tree needs to be responded to by a trained man with a gun. Or a woman with a gun. It's just ridiculous. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and it shouldn't. Listen, if we're trying to keep ourselves safe, the price for safety should not be your death.
Yep.
So, yeah, I still stick to that. It's so funny because I got a thing in the mail yesterday because I rode on the turnpike. And they used to have toll booths here. They don't have toll booths anymore. Now everything is enforced by your license plate. There's cameras all over the freaking road. And they take a picture of your license plate. They know when you got on and when you got off, which is creepy. Okay, it is. But I got a bill for $4.32 of my turnpike usage.
TV. All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
How long do these incidents go on? We heard from the district attorney yesterday and from the head of the TBI that there were 2 separate incidents, right?
Yes.
How long do they go on? And what was the worst part of it? Because it has been said that the officers became charged during the second incident, that they got more riled up.
Well, from the very beginning, to me, they were riled up. I don't think they were as amped up as they were on the second, at the second scene, but just the stop, the nature of the stop, very aggressive, loud, communication, and it just rose from there. It escalated from there. Mr. Nichols was able to get away from these officers, and they found him again at another location. And at that point, there was an amount of aggression that is unexplainable. In any instance where you're apprehending someone, even in the worst situations when there is resistance, officers still have the responsibility to exercise care and regard for any individual that's in custody or they're attempting to apprehend. And they're trained to do that.
And to de-escalate.
And to de-escalate. And that's a piece I think that is in question, but I think the escalation was there from the officers before training even needed to come in as it relates to de-escalate. The escalation was already at a high level.
So you're saying they did everything wrong? Nothing that you think this was outside of their training, everything?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there's something going on with this Scorpion Strike Force and their desire to intimidate and be violent with an innocent person. And I don't know what the reason is that they were so amped up, but we will find out. We will find out. And hopefully what we can do with this information is weed out officers like this and make way for officers like Dan. Make way for, a younger generation of people who want to be of service, real service, who really want to serve, who really want to protect, who really want to, be of service to their community and not kill their community. And not, intimidate people because they can, which seems to be the reason why we see so much of it. The reason why we saw so much of it is because they could. They could literally do it. They could get away with it. We know that we've seen people who do really heinous, ugly things wearing a badge get promoted after they do the really ugly thing. In order to distract us from the really ugly thing, they say, "Oh no, this is the cream of the crop. This is one of the better ones." I mean, listen, there is a problem, and it's not one bad apple, and it's not two bad apples. In this case, we were told to believe there's 5 bad apples.
Do you think this is a case of 5 bad apples? We often hear that phrase. It's just 5 bad apples. It's not reflective of the whole Memphis Police Department. That is certainly what they're saying. Do you think it's a case of that, or do you think this really shows there is a problem with policing in this country? And as Ben Crump says, especially when it comes to dealing with suspects of color.
Right. I definitely agree with that latter characterization. I think there's room for some nuance here. I mean, I think it is the case that the majority of police are, well-intended, dedicated, well-meaning people. But I also think at the same time it can be the case that there is a problem with the overall culture. And the overall culture can sometimes lead to overreach on the part of police. I think particularly when the citizen involved, as you said, is a person of color. I think what I hope will happen is that this will spark a broader conversation about how we can change that culture, how we can improve supervision on the part of the police, within the police, and also independently, like, for example, civilian review boards. I think what Ben Crump says has a lot of merit to it. I think that can be true. At the same time, it can also be true that most police are people of good faith.
5 bad apples. Yeah,
it's a bad orchard. It's been bad.
I mean, it's rotten. It's full of maggots, is what it is. It's just infused with rot. You can't have 5 bad apples. And the father, Rodney, who said that he did see the video. His mom, she doesn't. Rovon is her name. She can't. I don't blame her. She can't make herself watch her son be beaten to death, but Dad did. And he said, it's heinous. So 5 bad, but he actually indicates there are more than 5 officers. He indicates that there are about 10 officers. And what we played at the front of the show was the NBC report that clearly says that even firefighters who responded were fired because they failed to render aid. So there is an entire culture in the uniformed service people in Memphis, okay? And I just let me put in a plug for this real quick. Colin Kaepernick, who was shamed and shunned, or they tried to shame him. They tried to shun him. They booted him out of the NFL. For what? For taking a knee to draw attention to this very problem. Yeah, that was his big sin. He took a knee, everybody. He took a knee to bring attention to the police brutality, the brutalizing issue, which, by the way, he was right to do because, look, we're getting somewhere with it. We're actually moving forward, which is stunning in its own. Anyway, I think it's February 3rd. If you have Hulu, as a streaming service, Colin Kaepernick is the producer of a brand new documentary. It's called Killing County, okay? And it just so happens to be about Kevin McCarthy's district, Bakersfield, California, which has become a killing field for police. And so he's got this new documentary that he executive produced for Hulu, and it looks at the killing that's going on, the violence and the corruption in the Bakersfield police force, which happens to be Kevin McCarthy's district. Now, why that is so, just is because of the hypocrisy and the total bullcrap that we have to listen to when Kevin McCarthy puts on his serious face, right? About how he's really concerned. They ran on tamping down inflation. They ran on crime, right? Crime was rampant, and they were going to, do something about. Meanwhile, they've been in charge of the House, and all they've done is put Marjorie Taylor Greene in charge of everything. Okay, this is what they did. They put a COVID vaccine disinformation spreader to the point where she was booted off of Twitter for disseminating bogus information about the vaccine, and they put her in charge of the subcommittee. She's the chairman of the subcommittee that's going to investigate COVID vaccines and COVID. Right? I mean, it's just so bizarre. And they're threatening now, Matt Gaetz and they're threatening now to take away food stamps, which is what I said they were going to do, as they ran on crime. Meanwhile, Colin Kaepernick is going to shine a bright spotlight on Kevin McCarthy's crime problem inside the police force in Bakersfield.
Clear. Next. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
So, around 4 o'clock in the morning, the doctors called from St. Francis and said, "Mrs. Wells, do you know your son's in the hospital?" And I said, "Yes. I was advised by the police officers." He said, "Why aren't you here?" And I said, "The police officers said that I couldn't come because he was under arrest." The doctor proceeded to tell me that my son had went into cardiac arrest and that his kidneys were failing. This doesn't sound consistent to somebody being tased or pepper sprayed. When my husband and I got to the hospital and I saw my son, he was already gone. They had beat him to a pulp. He had bruises all over him. His head was swollen like a watermelon. His neck was busting because of the swelling. They broke his neck. My son's nose looked like an S. They actually just beat the crap out of him. And so when I saw that, I knew my son was gone then. Even if he did live, he would have been a vegetable. So once I got to the hospital, all the police officers were basically whisked out because I heard that the TBI had taken over the investigation. And that was it. They spoke to us, asked a bunch of questions, but I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't understand why they stopped my son in the first place.
Yeah, nobody does. It's just it's repetitive. Okay, is what it is. Story over and over and over and over and over and over. Why did they do this? No one knows. No one knows. Now, finally, we have a group of law enforcement officials who are willing to say, this was wrong. This is bad. This has got to stop. All of the people that have been, taking a knee and peacefully protesting, all of the people who have been saying, enough is enough. And George Floyd, was the video that shocked the world and it's got to end. They're right. They're right. Police chiefs are actually saying that. They're right. They had a point, and it's up to us to stop this. It's up to us to call it out. It's up to us to say their explanation of what happened here makes no sense. Their explanation of why they pulled this guy over makes no sense. I looked at the tape. We had other people look at the tape. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigations looked at the tape, and we can't see any reason why police officers would pull this 29-year-old man at 8:30 at night, 3 blocks from his parents' house, why they would pull him over, all amped up, spoiling for a fight, and get one, and beat him to death, and break his neck, and cause heart failure and kidney failure, and eventually 3 days later, death. Do you know what I mean? It's finally happening where officials, people in a position of power, are saying this doesn't make any sense. This has to stop. This is wrong. And we haven't had that before. So, look, I got a feeling tonight everybody's going to, watch this video. And people are going to be sickened by it, just like back in 1991 when we first had cameras, when we first saw, videotaped encounters between police officers and Rodney King. And, Rodney King, they said, was driving over 100 miles an hour, and he was apparently drunk. So, the idea that they had a legitimate reason to pull over Rodney King was never in dispute. That was, pretty clear that there was a reason that the police officers pulled him over in the first place. And they went from what was a lawful stop into unlawful, brutal behavior where they gang beat him. You know what I mean? And it was the first time we ever saw an encounter like that, because it was the first time we could ever see encounters, right? And that shocked the conscience. And that this one, they say, is equal, if not worse than that one. But this one is different in that you don't have people making excuses for what the LAPD did to poor Rodney King. And apparently there was no legitimate reason to even pull Tyre Nichols over, which compounds the fracturing of the unlawful behavior by police officers, right? So we're getting somewhere. Anyway, I think people are going to see this and they're going to be sickened and horrified by it, because how could you not if you're a human being, right? But I just know that people who would protest this, people who would go out in the street, people who would, scream and yell about this, will do it in a, completely peaceful manner. I just know that. I know that from experience. What I worry about is what I've always worried about, and that's the interlopers. It's like Umbrella Man in Minnesota at the AutoZone, right? Some guy dressed up in like all black with an umbrella to shield his face from the cameras that he realizes are going to be around a retail business like an AutoZone, who goes there in order to break windows and encourage people to riot, encourage people to loot, and make it look really disorganized and really violent and really illegal, the protest, right? I worry about the interlopers. I'm not worried about people who are reacting with a very natural human response to watching a 29-year-old man, otherwise a pillar of society, be beaten to death. I don't imagine that people who watch something like that and there will be an inordinate amount of outrage and sadness. But it's the interlopers I worry about. It's the people who want to, turn this into something that it isn't, for the benefit of the right wing, for the benefit of the, back the blue crowd without any questions or any responsibilities attached to the backing. I worry about that. I really do. But I know that the protests by seriously offended people, or people who really are working for social justice, or people who understand what the lay of the land is and what the facts in police brutality look like, are not violent people. It's the interlopers. It's the people that have a reason to twist this, to gaslight us, to turn it on its head, to make, ugly pictures for the camera. Now, what's really weird about Umbrella Man? No one knows what happened to him. No one knows. There is nothing on the entire internets. And I finished the internet. You know that. Yeah, I'm old enough where I finished the internet. And there's nothing except that there's an FBI bulletin, I think it was from last year, that's saying, hey, listen, if you could figure out who this is, let us know. They've never figured out who that was. You know what's interesting? They never figured out who planted the bombs on January 6th either. No, I'm just kidding. I have no connecting tissue for you on that story. Except to say maybe it's the SCOTUS leaker. Maybe it's the Supreme Court leaker. Maybe it's the same.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, hey, everybody. All right. So tomorrow is, today is the last day of my youth. That was the first thought I had this morning. Hey, Ran, wake up. Your youth is over. As of tomorrow, and I know my Wikipedia page is wrong, but it makes me a year younger, so I leave it. Not that they let me change it. That once came up at a court case. You don't want to know. However, tomorrow I become a senior citizen. Oh, yeah, for real. And so the thing that I thought about this morning was my youth is over. And that's it. It's done. I can no longer say I'm a middle-aged woman. I can no longer say I'm a young woman. I can no longer say I'm a grown adult. I'm a senior citizen as of tomorrow. Isn't that special? Isn't that fun, everybody? The only saving grace, the only good thing I could pull out of this news is that if somebody beats me now, if somebody, hurts me or there's an additional charge of elder abuse. If you hurt me, I mean, honestly, there's like no good thing. And the other day, I'm having this conversation with Brett. I'm going to embarrass the crap out of you because you hurt me. You hurt me, you bastard. I said to Brett, do I look 65? And he said, no, you're amazing. And I said, well, I had this conversation with Loretta, my mother, right? I was at my mother's Saturday. And so I had this conversation with her because, my birthday is tomorrow. And she said, you don't look a day over 40. I don't know what you're doing, but I always said you have the face you deserve by the time you're 40, and you haven't changed since you're 40. So I said to Brett, my mother says that I look 40, and he literally did not miss a beat and said, what? Are you kidding me?
That is an embellishment.
No, it isn't. And then you actually doubled down and said, his girlfriend, I love her. She's adorable. I love her. She's a kind, wonderful mom of 2 girls. Just fabulous. Brett scored, okay? Her name's Tony. He said, Tony's 40. So don't tell me that you didn't, say that.
Randy, I bring integrity.
It rattles around in my head.
Integrity. You...
Yes, I know. I said that to myself. I said that. I said that. I said at least Brett's honest. I did. When I walked out of here, because this happened after the show, I think last Thursday. Not that I made a note of it or anything. But
I'm going to get so much hate from all.
No, because I actually said to myself, well, at least he's honest. So this morning, though, when I woke up, my very first thought was, your youth is over. And what did I hear in my head? Brett saying, Tony looks 40. You don't. That's just ridiculous. And, it's rattling around in my head.
Didn't say ridiculous. You just keep adding these little extra details that make all the difference.
That's what Howard says I do.
Unreal.
He says the same thing. Anyway.
Happy birthday, Randy.
Thank you. Brother David, hello.
Sister, you're not old.
Yeah, I'm old. I am. I'm a senior.
You're vintage like wine.
Yeah, right.
I sent your mom a pair of socks that said that. I hope she wasn't offended. My heart has been so heavy since this thing happened 2 weeks ago. And I wasn't on the phone yet when Officer Dan called back, and I was saluting the computer. I agree with you 100%.
It was a beautiful moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it was major. It feels like turn that should have happened a long time ago because this is systemic and cyclical, and it's enough is enough over and over and over again. We say is finally inching forward, and I would not miss Colin's documentary.
Yeah.
For all the money in the world. That's my favorite kind of film anyway. But oh man,
Yeah.
It feels like the pieces are finally coming together.
I
All
agree.
these little threads.
Yes. So I just want to let you know, just as we're talking about pop culture and Colin Kaepernick's, awesome documentary that will debut on Hulu February 3rd. It's called
Cannot wait.
It's called Killing County, and it's about Kevin McCarthy's Bakersfield and the corruption and killing that goes on that police force there and why it's so violent there. But I have to tell you, I did watch George and Tammy because you recommended. And it was slow, but you know what? The acting was insane. It was so good. It was so.
They were both amazing. And then the other one.
I had no idea that was her story. Just not a clue.
Yeah. Then the other thing that this whole Tyre Nichols, and of course we share our last name, thing has brought up is that my girl Danielle Deadweiler did not get in as Mamie Till's mother for that film society, but it's been going on longer than that.
Yes. As a matter of fact, today during the interview, I didn't pull it, but there was a section of the interview where, see, this is why we love, what's his face in the morning, Don.
Oh, yeah. And I'm blanking his last name, but him. Yeah,
me too. Huh?
Lemon, right?
Yeah, Lemon.
Don Lemon, thank you.
How can we see? We're old. We're old. This is what's happening.
I know.
Right?
I know.
But
he's getting lost. He's getting lost in that show with all these extra voices. And
so let me tell you, that's why Don Lemon was so powerful this morning, because they put him back doing what he does, and that's working alone. Just saying, right? So anyway, This is why we love Don Lemon. So Don Lemon actually asked Rovan, I believe is her name, Rovan Wells, asked her, do you feel like Emmett Till's mother? And she didn't connect it for a minute. I mean, she's grieving. She's in the thick of it, right?
Of course.
And then they said, well, you remember Emmett Till was, his mother had to put him in an open coffin. So everybody, she goes, oh yes, it is. It's exactly that. But you see, that was the 50s. And here we are in the next century, 20 years in, and we're just now seeing a little shift in the ability to be honest about it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful natal day tomorrow.
Hey, Brother David, I got one of those wonderfully kitschy pair of socks you sent us on today, and I thought about you in the morning. Thank you so much.
Oh, but of course, it's what we're here for. We're all in this together.
And I will tell you, before you say gorgeous girdles for everyone, I do use the dish towels.
Excellent. Well, then my work here is done.
Yeah.
Love you always.
I love you too. Thank you. Yeah. So he sent us this crazy compilation Christmas gift of kitsch. Just crazy, crazy kitsch stuff. He sent me dish towels that say, being a girl is my superpower, and Cheech and Chong socks, and a pot holder shaped like pot. Crazy stuff. Really good. All in leopard bags. Everything was in a leopard bag, because nothing says Christmas like leopard, So anyway, it was fun. It was really fun. So thank you. Johnny in Texas.
You don't look a day over 40.
Thank you.
Johnny's smarter than I am.
I can't say the same for me.
Thanks.
Listen, at the bottom, at the bottom of the previous hour, you alluded to, and rightfully so, outrage.
Yeah.
The outrage you had at these events with regards to police violence in the media reported back in 1991. But when I was 18, graduating high school in 1977, and we moved to Houston, the very first news story I heard moving down here was about Jose Campos Torres and him being found dead floating in the Buffalo Bayou, beat up by a group of Houston Police Department cops. And I'll tell you, from that story and that day forward, the reputation of the Houston police has never, ever gotten better. As a matter of fact, 8 years later, during Operation DARE, acronym DARE, D-A-R-E, Drug Awareness, something.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yes.
That was their attempt at burnishing the reputation. Guess what? It flopped. It failed.
Yeah.
So my memory goes back to 77. That's when I became aware of current time cops. But then again, historically, when I was in grade school, we learned about police violence against black people during the civil rights protests when I was young and before I was born.
Right.
So this stuff is never ending.
Well, it is ending. It's slowly turning, and that's the nice part. If you could find anything nice in the story, that would probably be the smallest thing, but it's something. It is a thing. But you're right. This has been going on for forever. That's why, David was talking about Emmett Till. I mean, this is an old, disgusting story. And what's crazy is you still have governors like DeSantis. You still have governors like Abbott. You still have people, who are in charge of entire police forces who deny that this is going on, right? And don't want anybody to know the history of stuff like this, to the point where poor Colin Kaepernick gets kicked out of the NFL for taking a stinking knee.
Yeah,
but I think it's turning. I don't think it's over. It's not going to stop like this on a dime, but it's definitely changing. And it's changing because we saw a female police chief, a woman of color named C.J. Davis, who is the hero in all of this, say so. I'm telling you, you put women in charge of things, black women especially, you put women in charge of things, things will change. Incrementally, yes. Slowly, perhaps. But they will change. Now, you got crazy people out there, and we need police. But we need responsible police. Thank you.